Hello, Facebook world, and welcome to our Alaska Natives for Ballot Measure 2 virtual hangout, kind of a casual, fun event prior to big AFN week coming up next week. Alex Murphy is going to be getting us started, but I just wanted to say welcome. I know we're live at this point, so thank you for joining us. And we have some great speakers here today, and also we want to just kind of have a good visit and a good chat. I know many of us are sad to not be in person next week, and so maybe this can get us excited about at least interacting virtually and just kind of get some good dialogue going about ballot measure 2. So thank you for joining us and tuning in on Facebook.
Yes, thank you so much, Joy. You gave a great intro. I feel like I don't have much else to say, but thank you so much to everyone for joining us. My name is Alex Murphy. I'm the political director for Yes on 2 Alaskans for Better Elections, and we're just really excited to have this hangout session and talk about our Alaska Native Coalition, which we're delighted to launch, and Joy's going to talk a little bit about that in a minute here. But just to give a quick overview of what Ballot Measure 2 is, Ballot Measure 2 combines 3 common sense updates to our election system for a better Alaska. These nonpartisan reforms are designed to put the power of Alaska's electoral system back in the hands of voters. And a Yes on 2 will end the influence of dark money in Alaska campaigns. It will open primary elections to all voters, and it will allow voters in the general election to rank candidates in the order of their preference. Alaskans for Better Elections is about giving more voice, more choice, and more power to voters. And so today we're just here to chat, answer your questions about Ballot Measure 2, and talk about what this will do for Alaska. So I'm going to pass it back to Joy to get things started here. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Alex. And again, thank you to everyone that's participating so far. My name is Joy Huntington, and I have a business here in Fairbanks, and I'm a lifelong Alaskan. I spent 15 years in rural Alaska, living in Manly Hot Springs and Stevens Village. I'm a tribal member from Manly Hot Springs as well, and definitely excited to get to see the support that we have in the Alaska Native community across the state, and really happy myself to be working on the campaign since June. And I have a few quick announcements, and I want to hear from our speakers and have this be more of a dialogue. But I really want to just emphasize the difference and the impact that ranked choice voting is having across the country in the municipalities that have implemented it, where people of color and specifically women are far more likely to run and more likely to win their elections. And we really see that in the proof of who's been elected since ranked choice voting has been implemented in different cities. We've got some great stats on that, and would love to share more. I want to, so there's so many things about Ballot Measure 2 that I'm excited about, and have really had a good time working with the campaign team and sharing that information with folks. I know that we have quite a few folks lined up to speak today. So 2 quick announcements is that with this event, we are officially launching the Alaska Natives for Better Elections Coalition. So I believe Alex is going to share her screen, and we are going to just share with you the amazing people across the state that have signed on to the coalition. We have several online today. Liz Medicine Crow is one of them, and she's also on our steering committee, and we're going to hear from Liz very soon. So just to take a quick look, I see Dorothy Shockley is also on, and she's one of our coalition members. But you might see some familiar names. We have a great list here, and this is by no means a reflection of the amount of support coming from the Native community across the state. We have over 300 members in our Alaska Natives for Better Elections group on Facebook as well. And these are just some of the folks that really wanted to be more public in their support. And so we We appreciate each of them. If you'd like to get involved, please let us know. We'd love to have you be a part of the coalition moving forward, or write an op-ed. There's a lot of different ways to get involved. But thank you so much, Alex, for sharing our graphic. And we'll have a press release going out like immediately, I think, on that. So a lot of effort put into that, and congratulations to everyone that's been working on it, and super excited to launch that coalition. And the other really big announcement and exciting piece of information is that we recently found out last week that Tanana Chiefs Conference here in the interior, one of our major tribal nonprofits in the state, has endorsed ballot measure 2. So we've been sharing information with them. Yay, I see John's clapping, yay. And so huge announcement. They're a powerhouse in our state and truly lead the way in so many different aspects of our lives as Alaska Natives, whether that's public safety or healthcare. A lot of the pressing issues, they're right in the center of it. And they work in Juneau on a regular basis with our leadership. And so really excited to see their endorsement, and really happy to announce that today at this event. So a couple of quick real-time announcements. And with that, I really want to turn it to our speakers that we have lined up. We're waiting for a few more to join us. And kind of a quick note on the format of today's Zoom Hangout is that we did really want this to be more of a kind of like visiting with friends. And we chose to kind of have everyone be able to participate completely with videos and to be able to unmute themselves and join the conversation. We did invite a few guests to speak specifically to why they're supporting ballot measure 2, just to get some different voices and perspectives at the table. You've probably heard a lot from me, so I'm not going to take too much time talking about my perspective, but I do want to turn it towards our guest speakers, and we'll have more joining us as well. But the format is intended to be a little bit more casual with this webinar hangout, or the virtual hangout. And again, kind of pre-gaming for AFN next week. I hope everyone is signed up to participate virtually, as well as First Alaskans Institute Elders and Youth Conference, which Liz Medicine Crow, of course, is the president and CEO of First Alaskans Institute, and has done a phenomenal job of really keeping at the forefront of the issues across the state, for all of us through First Alaskans. And so she's, it's the fact that she has time to hang out with us the week before Elders and Youth Conference is amazing. She must be Superwoman. But we want to gear people up for next week's events. I know it's going to be a different format. For AFN, the theme is Good Government, Alaskans Decide. And so I don't know if ballot measure 2 set that theme or which came first, but the two are definitely aligned, and it's right on track with what we're trying to do with ballot measure 2. So this is kind of, I'm calling it like a pregame to next week, because I think what we're going to talk about today is definitely coincides exactly right on with the theme. And House Speaker Representative Bryce Edgman is the keynote speaker next week at AFN, and he is one of our names on the coalition, which is so exciting to share that he joined the coalition. So a lot of kind of synergy with AFN with ballot measure 2. So with that, I wanted to invite Liz Medicine Crow to please share for a few minutes about her support and her involvement with the steering committee, and kind of what motivated her to jump on board with ballot measure 2.
Ganesh Chish, hello everyone. Thank you, Joy, so much for the warm introduction, and Alaskans for Better Elections for creating this opportunity for us to just talk a little bit more and kind of demystify what ballot measure 2 really is about. I want to introduce myself to you properly, though. Sanaitla Nun Kwaigai Gitkianan Sinudi Nan Kiagan. Nun Kwaigai Gitkianan was my grandmother, Mona Jackson. She was a teacher here in our community of Kijuan, but she came from Haida Gwaii and Heidelberg, Alaska. Ganahake Kennedy Chan Kiagan Ganahake was my grandfather. Hathlangadas, he was he was Tlingit, and our community here of Kijuan is a Tlingit community, and was his home. Stathkawas Hinidi Aukiang. Stathkawas is my mother, Delachini. She's a weaver and she's a teacher. Bilchini Hinidi Khadkiang. Bilchini is my father, and he makes his home here in our community of Cake. Lagunai Hinodi Khadkil Dikiang. Lagunai is my Khadkil name, so that's what you see on the screen. Feel free to call me Liz, but Lagunai is the name that my grandmother gave me. Gatsakas Gustiti Kwalagan, I am Eagle, Chichkitne Sinu Uda Ejong, and I am a Chichkitne woman. Our crest is the hummingbird. I am also Tlingit, and on my Tlingit side, I am Raven, Kachadi, freshwater mark sockeye salmon. And Joy already mentioned where I work, although I'm involved in ballot measure 2 on my own behalf as an Alaska Native woman. And not in my professional capacity, but in my own capacity as somebody who cares so much for our people and the ability for our people to actually have better representation in the state legislature. It's long been since time that we had a different process that would render a different result. And so for myself, I'm an undeclared voter. I'm not a partisan voter. And I really care about being able to elect candidates who have the best interest of Alaska at heart and not their own best interest. Have the best interest of our people, of our ways of life, of our lands, of our waters, of our animals, and have the best interest of the people who make Alaska so amazing. That's what I care about when I think about candidates. And I've felt really disenfranchised as a voter, as an Alaska Native voter, because of all the historic ways that we have been purposely disenfranchised from the vote. But also when it comes to being able to have the mobility I would like to have in making selections on who I'd want to represent us, I feel really blocked out of a 2-party primary system. And I feel like I don't get to exercise my vote the best way that I can. I feel limited in choice. I feel like I'm forced into one party or another, and I'm not a member of either. And so just as a voter, that makes it intriguing and interesting for us to be working towards a different approach to elections. Now, as a Native person, when I think about the people who end up representing all of Alaska, I know people are really focused on their constituency and their specific district, but at the end of the day, they swear an oath to the state of Alaska to represent all of us. And so we are all their constituents, regardless of what district they are elected into. And so from a governance standpoint, I want all of those candidates to care about our issues, irregardless of whether they've even ever been to my village. I want them to exercise their duty responsibly, and I want them to be caring about our issues. And I believe a system that uses ranked choice voting allows us to get people who are going to have to know more about all of our issues collectively, rather than just a single issue constituency or a specific viewpoint. And those are the things that really made me interested in it. Now, why would I be interested in moving from the current system? Because the proof is in the pudding. Look at how many Alaska Natives we've been able to elect, or even have run and have a winnable chance of running. In the current system, and to not change the current system means investing in the status quo, and that's not something I think is in our best interest as Native people, not at least for me as a Native woman, as I think about trying to get people in here who who know what tribes are, who know what corporations are, who know what tribal nonprofits are, who know what regional nonprofits are and how they work together, who know the difference between, you know, AFN and FAI and TCC, and who understand the difference of the complex layers of governance that we have, who understand the importance of our tribes and our villages, that the heartbeat of Alaska rests in our villages, who understand the criticality of the thriving cultures, languages, and peoples across the state who have stewarded it for thousands of years. That's what I care about, and I feel like making a switch to try something that will hopefully render a better result, given what we've been learning about it in other places. I'm willing to take that risk because we are well worth it, and the current system has been failing us. So I appreciate all of you creating an opportunity for us to talk about that and to demystify it and to help, you know, share and educate for other folks around the state to think about what they're going to do on their ballot. So Ganesh Chishawa for inviting me to participate.
Wow, thank you so much, Liz. That was just so eloquent and very powerful to the, you know, to really the heart of the issues. And I think we have to take, you know, acknowledge that status quo is not working for all of us. And I've heard, you know, from, you know, the opposition is saying very loudly that status quo is working. But I don't know if that voice and that statement represents all of our perspectives, because like you said, many people do not feel, they strongly disagree with that statement, and that status quo is, you know, really not working for them. So appreciate your participation tonight and your comments. I see that Werner Wilson has joined us, and really excited to have Werner on. So we're moving from the Southeast over to the Southwest. Werner, I've known Werner and known of Werner for a long time. He was out shaking up DC when he was in high school. So born and raised in Dillingham, a spectacular leader, amazing person, has been fighting for fishing rights for, I think, since he was like, I don't know, maybe 5 years old, I'm not sure, but for all of his life, I think. And he can share a little bit about what his current role is right now professionally, but really happy to have you here, Werner. And Werner is also a member on our Alaska Natives for Better Elections Coalition. So thank you, Werner, for contributing and standing behind the campaign. Right now, what we're doing is just giving each of our speakers that we've asked in advance to speak today are just giving kind of their perspective of why ballot measure 2 matters to you and why you're getting involved. So I will hand it over to you, Werner. Thank you for joining us today.
Goyana, Waka, hi, everyone. I wanted to say, you know, my name is Tikiakbak Goyakamsi Kamakhlusi. That's Siberian Yupik from St. Lawrence Island, where my mom's from. It means great to see you all. And even though we're on virtual chat, and we all probably have laser eyes at this point, but you know, I really care about this issue. I was born and raised in Chiliung, or Dillingham. I have family connections from Bristol Bay all the way up to the Bering Strait, where my mom and her family are from. And I just wanted to mention some of the things that Liz said. And, you know, these are things that come from our hearts. I don't think that our government is working for us right now as Alaska Natives. We constantly see our leaders ignore what we need, hardly, you know, visit our hundreds of villages that need to be heard. You know, a lot of us understand that we need to express why we support our subsistence way of life, why we want to protect our environment, why we want to protect our fisheries. And I think that this ballot measure, the three things that it does, first of all, creating transparency in our elections on outside groups will help make sure that Alaskans are heard first. And we all need to understand who's pouring the millions of dollars into our elections. You know, that influences a lot of people's votes, and it's something that I'm excited to see that, that this initiative does. Secondly, I'm excited that it opens the primaries. We've seen data from other places that have that, and I believe it will require candidates to, instead of attacking each other based on their party line and based on you know, their partisan politics, that it will require our leaders to pay attention to the issues that all Alaskans care about. And it will encourage more Alaska Natives, more women, more, you know, others. They've shown, you know, studies that have done this, and so the top four will advance, and I'm glad to say that the top four will be able to have ranked choice voting from voters. So I believe what that will do is instead of politicians attacking each other personally or on their party politics just because they have a D or R next to their name, they will try to win over voters from all coalitions. And I just think, I wholeheartedly think that that will ultimately make our politics better. Because as we know, I mean, Juneau can't even pass a budget and they can't agree on anything. And we're seeing that in Washington, D.C. Another thing that I think that this will do is moderate out our rhetoric and moderate out our candidates. Right now, you could see a far left or a far right wing person win the primary, and just because they have a D or an R next to their name, people will vote for them. What this does, hopefully, is, you know, require all of the candidates to say, you know what, I'm not just gonna attack this person just because they're a Democrat or a Republican. I'm gonna say, okay, well, if they have, you know, their voters, what are their voters interested in? What kind of issues do they care about? And ultimately, I just think that that will help our community, especially in rural Alaska, Alaska Natives. I think that that's what our cultural values are. Instead of attacking each other, our cultural values will play into this, and hopefully, you know, we'll make history with this. And I think the rest of the country will be proud of Alaska. We're good at that. We know Elizabeth Karachevich, you know, she was a pioneer. Alaska was one of the pioneers in women's suffrage and the right to vote. And so I view this initiative as another way of, you know, Alaska Natives leading the way to help our state. So thank you, Koyana, very much.
Oh my goodness. Between Liz and Werner, I'm like, I don't even know how to transition to anything else. You guys have literally said it all. So I think we can just close down the campaign at this point. No, you guys are amazing. Liz is like, no, don't do it. No, just kidding. But Werner, you hit on so many things. And I love that you said making history and Alaska Natives leading the way. You know, I want to just share something with you and the Facebook world, but I am very proud that the Alaska Natives for Better Elections Coalition is the strongest coalition with the most members, if I can say that. And that doesn't surprise me. The fact that we're putting our names out there and very publicly, you know, supporting this. When you say leading the way, I mean, I just like put a huge smile on my face because so many people are stepping up and getting involved with our Facebook page and sharing things and just going above and beyond what, you know, and I don't know, I've asked people, some people, I'm sure, Liz, you've been asked for like 20 things already, and people are just so engaged and really offering so much support. So on that sense, we're definitely out there front on the front of this, which is amazing. And secondly, talking about leadership and just what our values are, leadership is really important in our communities, and it has been for 10,000 years. Our leadership and who we choose as our leaders, there's always been a very thoughtful process involved in selecting our leaders. I know in the village of Minto, my mom has told me that the elders told her that they used to kind of look at how the kids would interact, and just a quick story, but how the kids would interact, and they would see different characteristics and qualities in certain young people, and they would start to groom them into leaders. And so the way that we select our leadership as Alaska Natives has never been a thoughtless or a quick and easy kind of a process. There's always been so much thought into it and so much of our values into that process. And so I just wanted to share that it's no different now with electing our state leaders, that we want to have the same kind of thoughtful and careful approach that really is inclusive of everybody. And so whether it's looking at our history and our culture or our elections today, I think there's definitely it's very, very much the same concept of what we need to do. And appreciate your comments, Werner, and so happy that you're involved with the campaign. So thank you. And I want to hand it over to Ms. Stacy Lucasen to share her perspective on why she's involved in Ballot Measure 2. And Stacy is our Deputy Campaign Manager as well. So she is living this campaign every day, and I really have loved having her. Working with her has been great. And Stacy is going to share her perspective and her background as well. And then we're going to hand it over to Scott Kendall, who, thank you, Scott, for joining us tonight. Many of you know Scott. He's a very strong advocate for Alaska Natives in whatever he does. And I've known that about him, and I've worked with Scott for a long time. And he's always right there backing us up when we need him. And so thank you, Scott, for all that you do and all that you've done as Chief of Staff under Governor Walker, we worked together on Senator Murkowski's campaign back in 2016. And so really excited to have Scott here as well. And he'll share a little bit. I think Werner did a great job of explaining all of Ballot Measure 2. So Scott can share anything that maybe Werner didn't cover. But Stacy, I'll hand it over to you. And then I think Stacy will open it up for Scott to share some of the kind of nuts and bolts of Ballot Measure 2 for some people that are tuning in that may not have been able to look at it yet. So take it away, Stacy.
Thank you, Joy. Waka, winga, Stacy Lucasen, Atataka, Richard Lucasen, Pu Ananaka, Sandra Rogers, Wing. I'm Stacy Lucasen. I'm learning Yupik and working on this campaign. This is the first campaign that I've worked on, and as Joy mentioned, I'm able to serve as the deputy campaign manager here. My dad is Richard Lucasen. He's on the Kenai Peninsula. We're members at Ninilchik, but our family's roots are in Western Alaska. My grandma was born outside Dillingham, so near you, Werner, but she left after World War II. Her family moved around, and I ended up growing up in Fairbanks, so I've been seeing Joy's fall time and missing out on travel that's not happening this year. You guys may have seen my daughter, that's Olga. She is possibly going to come back and join us. And that's really like the biggest reason that I've gotten involved in a political way and looking at the future of our state and the way that we elect people and the way that we structure the systems that are supposed to be supporting us. What we have right now is not working. It doesn't meet the needs of all Alaskans. It doesn't provide stability, and it doesn't provide the infrastructure that we need to grow and thrive. And this ballot measure brings together three components that really do strengthen the way that we elect our leadership, that we can you know, vote for people, whoever we want. We don't have to join a private party, and we don't have to expect that somebody is going to go to the far partisan side of just two parties that don't even represent Alaskans who vote now, not even the Alaskans that we can imagine or the parties that might exist if this structure wasn't so oppressive and forcing us into just that binary. And then I like the idea of ranked choice voting, right? That I can say, this is my favorite, this is my second favorite, and not have to worry like what that's gonna do and who's gonna be strategic and is this a spoiler or am I gonna lose a vote or have it be wasted? I hate voting that way. And so to be able to say, this is my preference, and just share it, I think that, you know, all Alaskans definitely have the capability of doing that, and it's going to give us more power to be able to say, this is who we want, these are the issues we care about, primary, secondary, tertiary, whatever number that they are. And I'm really, really glad to see the dark money disclosure requirements. In the past 10 years, there's been this crazy influx of huge spending in elections. Like my first times voting compared to now, it's so different. And so I'm sure those of you with more experience have seen it even worse than that. But to be able to know who's spending the money and like who then candidates who are elected, like where their loyalties lie and who they're having those donor phone calls with and who they're having that relationship with, because that affects like what they think about and what they focus on. And I think it does pull their attention away from solving problems that all of our communities are facing. I'm supposed to introduce Scott, who is our legal counsel. He has lots of technical answers and further information about the ballot measure. And I think he has sort of the short what it does, and then we're chatting kind of casual get together. So if you guys have questions, if you don't want to join audio or you're having technical difficulties, you can use chat, of course. But yeah, I'm gonna give it away to Scott and let him give the official legal overview. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Stacy, and thank you everyone who's on the line. It's great to see you, Liz. I would love to come visit you in Cake. I hope, you know, at some point we get in the other side of all this, because me and my family would love to come see you. Good to see you, Werner. We've together worked many years on issues of protecting Bristol Bay, and it's great to see so many strong Alaskans, and kind of an honor to be here with you know, not only strong Alaskans but friends, because that's what Alaskans are. So I'm just going to kind of real quick go through the things that Ballot Measure 2 does, the problems and the solutions, and then talk about who our opponents are. And then, you know, if there's technical questions or anything else, I can answer those, but I'll try to be a little bit brief because the lawyers tend to talk too long to begin with. So first of all, we start with the problem of our broken primary system. It's a closed primary system that really serves no purpose other than to cater to the two major parties. The two major parties get to act as gatekeepers to the ballot. They have a guaranteed slot on every ballot in the state. And they're provided that even though the state pays for elections. Other communities don't. Democrats and Republicans get that privilege. Alaska Native communities don't get it. Working families don't get it. They have it. We think that's a problem because you end up with more extreme candidates, and those candidates, because they know the primary election is the real ticket to getting reelected, they answer to the party. They don't answer to families. They don't answer to the Alaska Native communities often, and that's backwards. They should answer to Alaskans first. So what we've talked about doing is every candidate gets on one ballot, no more Democratic ballot and Republican ballot, and every voter, regardless of how they're registered with a party or not at all, like 62% of Alaskans don't affiliate with either party, you can vote for whoever you want. And if that person's a Republican in the Senate race and a Democrat for House and a independent or Green Party or no party at all for state Senate, that's your right, we think, as Alaskans. So that's solution number one. The other problem is winners without majorities. So when you have 2, 3, 4, even 5 candidates running, as we often do in Alaska, what you end up with is whatever candidate can rally their base will win. And they can win with 35, 40%, even though 60 or 65% of Alaskans prefer other people, they win because they can rally their base. And what's unfortunate about that is often these candidates rally their base around really divisive issues. We all have our own opinions on social issues, on other issues, but I think we'd all agree that we're not governed well when the most extreme candidate who can rally support just for one divisive issue wins, And then they have to manage all the other issues the state faces, and they don't have to have answers because this system will keep sending them back as long as they can rally that base. So the ranked choice voting lets you say, hey, this candidate is my first love. They really align with me 100%. But you know what? Candidate 2, I agree with them 80% of the time, and I sure don't want candidate 3. So it gives every voter that opportunity to both vote sincerely with their first choice and then vote strategically, because again, I've heard this metaphor before that, you know, voting isn't getting married. It's like taking a bus, and you choose the bus that gets you closest to the kind of Alaska that you want to have. And I think that's how we make our decisions in real life. We don't go to a restaurant, and if they're out of the special, we don't not eat. We choose the next thing on the menu that we would like to eat. And so if that's how we make our decisions in kind of everyday life, why would we make our most important decisions any other way and have this zero-sum game, political games where a spoiler can lead to people winning who have no business running our government? The final problem Alaska has is dark money. And that's money that is spent in our elections that Alaskans have no way of knowing who originated the funds. So imagine for a moment I'm a wealthy Alaskan. I wish I was, but if I had $5 million, I could send that money down to the lower 48 and donate it to Americans for Apple Pie. And Americans for Apple Pie could donate that money to Alaskans for Strong Families. And then Alaskans for Strong Families could run a campaign against the person I don't like. You'd never know that I did that. That's the way the law works now. It not only favors the rich, since Citizens United, by allowing them to spend whatever they want, it lets them sit in the shadows and you don't even know they spent it until a year after the campaign, or maybe never at all. What we're saying is we can't override federal law. So the Citizens United case is the law of the land, at least for now. So we can't stop your spending. But if you're going to spend money to influence our votes, we're going to know your name. Alaskans have a fundamental right to know who's trying to influence their elections. So that's ballot measure 2 in a nutshell. We will have open primaries. We will have ranked choice voting or instant runoff voting in the general, and we will disclose dark money spending. We'll find out what your identity is. One thing I wanted to touch on before I cede the floor is we ran this campaign for many months and we kind of didn't have opposition, and it was just about educating Alaskans. But now we have formalized opposition, and tell you a little bit about them. They have gotten a ton of support from What Do You Know, out of state, Club for Growth, other dark money groups that just spent $250,000 in Alaska's primaries to influence those outcomes. And now they're spending money, they're spending dark money to protect their ability to continue to hide their finances. There's been big money donated by executives for Pebble Mine. They tried to refund those contributions so we wouldn't know they gave it, but we do know that. And actually just today, the Alaska Public Offices Commission had to put out an emergency order because all of their disclaimers on the No on 2's ads were false. They were saying that their donors were 3 prominent Alaskans when those Alaskans had given less than 1% of their actual funding. They've started off by lying to Alaskans, and we had to go to the Public Offices Commission and get an emergency injunction to stop it. That's who we're up against. The dark money will strike back. It will fight back. But I believe in Alaskans. I think the voters are going to see this for what it is. It's something that gives them more power and more choices and more information. And that's why we support being yes on 2, because we don't have the solutions for the state's problems. But we think when you give the voters all the choices and the power they deserve, that Alaskans do have the answers. We're just giving them a toolbox in order to move our state forward. So with that, I'll let it go, but thank you for the time, and thank you to everyone listening and attending.
Thank you, Scott. And we actually have a question from one of our participants today, one of our speakers. Liz Medicine Crow asked, in regards to what the opposition has been saying about outside money and that controlling ballot measure 2, can you please speak to that or clarify that, please?
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit to the history of the drafting of ballot measure 2. So first of all, in early 2019, myself and other leaders sort of throughout Alaska, many Alaska Native leaders I spoke with, we actually came up with this concept, 100% Alaskan grown in order to solve Alaskans' problems. So we actually put this idea together. We put a ballot measure together, and we started actually circulating it in order to raise a little money because we thought we had a good idea. We thought it moved the state forward in a huge way. But that was, again, Alaskans who conceived of it and drafted it. But like, I guess a little bit like venture capitalists, we sent it around to national contacts, and there's several philanthropic groups that have said, yes, we'll donate money, not because they have a stake. These aren't groups that have a stake in Alaska's politics the way our opponents do. These are groups that believe, what if Alaska shows the country the way forward? They care about our country and they have their own issues, and they think the enemy is gridlock, but they think our state could be positioned to show the country what a state-of-the-art functional democracy looks like. So we've accepted funds from wherever they've come. We certainly have, but that has not impacted one iota ballot measure 2, not one comma, not one word, because we wrote it ourselves for Alaska by Alaskans. And then the other part of that, which is important to know, is we've gotten money from groups, and we've actually gone beyond the disclosure requirements. So if we get money from a group, as I discussed earlier with dark money, we could just report the name of the group. We went a step further, and if you go to our website under disclosures, we said, not only is this the group that we have to report in our ads, we're actually going to give you the names of the individual donors behind those groups, because we're going to live the world the way we think it should be, not the way it is. And so, yes, we've had outside support. Has that had any influence on what ballot measure 2 does or why we did it? Absolutely not.
Thank you, Scott, for clarifying that. I wanted to see who our phone call participant is. I'm wondering if it might be Percy Ballot. I know Percy is having trouble logging on today. Percy, is that you?
Yes, it sure is.
I thought that was you. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Percy is joining us from Buckland, where he has been the tribal president for like 26 years. He said he's lost count of how long he's been the president of the tribe there. And he's also a board member of Maniluk, and he was recently the chairman of Maniluk Association for the Northwest Arctic communities. That is their tribal nonprofit organization, similar to TCC that we talked about earlier. And Percy is definitely a huge supporter of ballot measure 2. He's, there's days when I don't reach out to Percy and he messages me and says, what do you need from me today? So thank you so much, Percy, for all of your support and involvement. And Percy is one of our Alaska Natives for Better Elections coalition members. So if you're from his region and you have questions or have questions maybe specific to tribal healthcare, he's been involved with tribal healthcare across the state for a very long time, and can definitely answer those questions. Percy, I'd like to open up for you to share a little bit from your perspective on why you're supporting ballot measure 2 and why you think it matters to our rural communities and specifically to Alaska Natives that we're addressing this issue.
All right, yeah, I'm Percy Ballot Machok, is my Eskimo name, and I'm here from Buckland. We have 700 tribal members. 500 are here. Lots of twins in town around here. Maybe 14 kids for so many people here. And the caribou winters around here during the winter. And the beluga is our mascot. We're always running over to play basketball. We have kids that are doing good in the grades. Right now we're going through the pandemic. I'm in quarantine, so things aren't as good, but they could be better. And I'm here to say I'm with this group for better elections because I have 25 grandkids. I have 5 great grandkids. And our town is a very young town. They need to have a better way, a better choice to pick who they're going to get to represent them for the things that are going on in this world. Right now, in our region of 12, it costs so much in transportation. If you go buy apples, even in Kotzebue, it's really expensive. You could buy an orange, it's expensive. If you need fuel, Notak only 50 miles away from Kotzebue. It costs an arm and a leg for a gallon of gas and a gallon of stove oil. In Ambler, it's worse. So our candidates need to know what's going on, what we're facing here in our region. And we need to know what they're doing. We need to know who's financing those people that are running for public office that can make a difference in our lives. Because our lives, really interact with everybody in our community, in the region, and even the state of Alaska. I want to know, what is he going to do about making Anchorage safer? We have so much domestic violence. We have so much things going on, gun shootings in Anchorage. I want a candidate that's going to help, because we have a lot of people that are there in Anchorage. Not only that, in Southeast Alaska, in Juneau, all over. I want to know, what are they going to do about our resources? They're really important. Our culture is important. We're taught to save, respect our animals, make sure we use our resources. We have oil and gas out there, and they're all saying that they won't come and utilize our resources. I don't mind utilizing the resources as long as it's responsible development. But they got to pay the price. I hear that they get away with a lot of costs that should be going so that we could have infrastructure. We don't have nothing much in Buckland. In Kivalina, they got no water and sewer. In other villages, they need to move their town because of the cold climate situation. So we need to find somebody that's going to listen to what we need. Everybody is important. Our teachers here are important. They need support. They need the things they need for teaching. So that's why I'm here, because I want to have a choice now, soon, and I want our kids to have that choice. We can decide. I see nothing but, I'm a Democrat, but Democrats, Republicans, they're always saying they do this, they do that, they're against this, they're against that. That's not what I want to hear. I want to hear what kind of issues you want to support. She want to support. I want to let them hear what we got to say, what our needs are, even if it's just Buckland, but the whole state of Alaska. We all have some common concerns. And that's the candidate I want to look, and I want to choose myself. And I want my kids and my grandkids in the village to have that choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Percy. Wow, I'm so excited that you're here. And we traveled up to the Northwest Alaska, Northwest Arctic region of the state. So we're kind of traveling. Oh, there's Olga. we're making our rounds, and I believe we have someone from the North Slope calling in at 4 to share her perspective as well. So we're definitely making our way around the state with our comments. And Percy, I think what you really drove home, I think everybody's really, adding a very, powerful message to what we're saying today. And what you're really raising for this conversation is that the issues that we're facing are very real. And they're issues that we can't wait to have leadership, maybe in the future, that will really, and you also said that we are important. You said that a few times. And I think a lot of our leadership and people have felt kind of exasperated because, we shouldn't have to remind people that we're important and that our communities are important. And so, you raised some really important issues that, we can't wait for that to happen. And this is really, and Scott mentioned earlier, this is kind of a once in a generation opportunity to really change our system of how we elect leadership. And I just want to this is a major moment in time that we have, and a major opportunity. And so I know that's why we're all here and participating. So thank you, Percy, for everything that you've been doing. And we're so thankful to have you be a part of the conversation. And we have another speaker coming up here soon. Cordelia Kelly is going to be joining us at 4. So we're excited to have her jump online. While we are waiting for Cordelia, I wanted to read something quickly that we got from, we have people participating on Facebook. So excited to see that interaction. There was a comment that came in from Facebook. Reg Paratovich from Facebook says, it's important to note one of our largest segments of voters are the non-voters. It would be silly to believe we could fix that with the status quo. That's one of the many reasons I support this cause. And I definitely agree with Reg. I've been working with Get Out the Native Vote since I graduated and came home 14 years ago. And the people that are out there trying to encourage people to show up at the polls on election day, it is difficult sometimes and very discouraging, because when you see people not participating, when they really care about the issues, it's disheartening, because it makes it really, I think, crystal clear that we might feel, like, what's the point? And the morale has been so low for voters across the state. And I think especially in Alaska Native communities and among people of color, that, if the one that they want to vote for is not going to win anyways, or if they're kind of being forced to vote strategically, as Scott mentioned earlier, if there's a candidate that they feel really strongly, my mom has run, she's probably the bravest person I know, and she ran an election against 2 incumbents, one from each of the main parties, and she was as an independent, and just had a really uphill struggle. And for the people that were really passionate about her, she was the only Native woman on the ballot in a mostly rural district, all the way out to Hooper Bay and connecting to Fairbanks. People out in the villages were so excited to see that they had an option that was an Alaska Native woman and the only Native on the ballot in that particular race. But voting for her might have taken votes away from one of the primary party candidates. And, it was people, she was kind of given a hard time for, sort of splitting the vote, and people had to be strategic in their vote. And if we had ranked choice voting at that point, then all of those people that felt very strongly about her running could have just voted their conscience and their heart, and not having to vote strategically because of the current status quo. So I think that really kind of hits home for all of us on what we're trying to do with ballot measure 2. And I wanted to see we have some messages. Is there, while we're waiting for Cordelia to join us, we have about a half an hour here. Is there anybody on the line that would like to make a comment or ask a question? I know we have quite a good chat going in the chat box, but if someone wants to unmute and ask a question to one of our speakers or to Scott, while we have Scott on the line, he's really knows this ballot measure front to back. one quick item as well is one question we get is, why is it 25 pages? And the easy answer to that is that it was written very clearly in legislative format. And so the voters would see what, everything from which period would be deleted, what word would be deleted and replaced if this ballot measure passes, which is not always the case with ballot measures. You're sometimes wondering, okay, this is what the paragraph says, but how is it really going to be implemented? And this leaves no question for how it's going to be implemented, which is why the length is there. And so I think that's kind of used as a way to try to poke a hole that this is really overly complicated and complex and tricking voters, but really it's not. There's a really simple response to that. So I wanted to throw that information out there and see if anybody has any questions or comments while we're waiting for Cordelia. Delicia.
Hi, everyone. I can share a few thoughts. I don't have many questions because I am actually also another Alaska Native on the Alaskans for a Better Election team. But as I was listening to, was it Percy, I believe? I'm bad with names, sorry. As well as Scott before him and Werner, I had a couple thoughts that I thought I would share. And I shared one comment in the chat mostly because I was like, I better get this out here before I forget it. But something that I've heard my entire voting life, I'm 29. I got to vote for the first time, I believe in just a local election. I turned 18 the spring after the 2008 election. So I didn't get to participate in that. So my first elections were more about local issues. But ever since then, I've always heard that if we, the voters, are unhappy with the job of any elected officials, what's within our power, and pretty much our only power, is to vote them out. And so what was very attractive to me about Yes on Tube before I even joined as part of the team was how bold and innovative it was, and not just one part being RCV, open primaries, or stronger disclaimers about contributions, but that they all work together as a whole to give us more power, us the voters more power, but also to encourage and facilitate better candidates for us to vote for to begin with, so that we don't keep voting for people that we're then told that if we're not happy with their job, the only thing within our power is to wait and vote them out. And I wanted to share that. And I also wanted to share Joy was mentioning about the length of the bill itself, and I was actually talking to Stacy about this last night and just like sharing some thoughts and ideas that I was having, because that's another thing about the staff here at AE is that we're not just staff, like we are voters, we are Alaskans, we believe in this, and we're constantly talking about and actually really excited, like, ooh, this is another thing that I thought of about this and what this means for the future of our state. But one thing that we were talking about, I am a busy person. That's a kind of an understatement. I have 4 jobs. I'm a small business owner of 2 small businesses. I have 2 children, and I'm not 30 yet. I'm also not a high school graduate. I am half Black and Inupiaq, and I hear oftentimes that I am too busy or not smart enough to participate meaningfully in the voting process. That's something that I hear, and that speaks to me a lot because I am paying attention, and it offends me. But I've come from an Alaskan family. My grandpa actually helped to put up telephone and radio poles up all across of Alaska, and he used to offer me and my brother money if we could get in trouble on Columbus Day. Like, we have always been a political family, and that was always very, very interconnected and hardly indistinguishable from our Indigenous identity. When the primaries were going on, I was reading the bills that they were talking about because I couldn't get enough information when they were saying, you want to do this. And then they would say, no, I don't want to do that. And I couldn't get a clear answer on what they wanted to do because there was just yes and no's all over the place. And so I went and read things like the parts of the Green New Deal, the student debt bills that were being proposed. That's really important to a lot of people in my generation, and I wanted to be informed about what people's different bills were, so that I could talk about them to people. And the thing is, they're all really long and boring. They're not really concise, and they're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be a manual. And what I was telling, or they're supposed to be a manual so that if and when they pass, the people who wrote them have hopefully done the work to where we've told you exactly what we're asking you to do and how to do it, and have laid that out, instead of just being like, wouldn't it be cool if we had open primaries, guys? Okay, now it's passed, figure it out. Like, that's not okay. But at the same time, I was telling Stacy, like, I am a very good driver. I harp to my insurance company all the time to lower my rates because I'm such a good driver. Do I know how my manual, like, stick shift works? No. If I took it apart or somebody showed me what it even looks like underneath the leather, I couldn't really tell it apart from anything else. But I know how to work my car. I know how to get this from here to there. I know how to be a safe driver for others, but also for myself and my family. And when I get into my car, like, I trust that. And I don't have to know all of the workings of every nut and screw and bolt in there. And so that was my impression when we are told that it's a 25-page bill. Like, if anything, that tells me that it's thorough. Not that it's necessarily confusing, but that it's thorough. And I have been working to read it, and it's not the most gripping literature. You know, it doesn't have me on the edge of my seat waiting to see what happens next. But I do appreciate how thorough it is in regards, like, right now I'm still on the part about dark money. And I'm still on that chapter, but it's all about how we are expected, how our officials are expected to report this. Who is responsible for what information? What are the penalties? All of that, you know, all of that is answered in the bill, in the ballot initiative, as being so comprehensive to where when it does pass, that's already, the work has already been done. The Alaskans have written that, have really done a phenomenal job at laying that out so that it doesn't just create more work or more confusion or room for lawmakers to twist what the voters had been promised. And those were my thoughts that I wanted to share with everyone today about those 2 points that I hear in discourse with people who are either confused or maybe getting opposing messages about things. And I'll wrap that up.
Thank you so much, Delicia. I think I could listen to you talk all day. You are an amazing speaker and had some really strong points to make. So thank you for jumping on today and for sharing your comments and your personal story. I just want to say, go you. You're amazing and you're doing so much. And you are exactly, you're the, I'm just almost tongue-tied because, when I've been on, public hearings with members of the opposition who literally said, this is going to, this is a direct quote, this is going to be difficult for minorities. This is going to be difficult for single moms.
I heard that loud and clear.
Yeah, no,
I haven't shut up about how angry that made me since then.
Yeah, no, and when statements like that are made and, because, and my response was, my 9-year-old can rank, what her options are for dinner, for whatever. I mean, this is not a complex system or voting, system that we're not going to be able to understand And to say that minorities are going to struggle with this is just outright offensive. And that type of statement does not belong in this discourse at all. And the fact that that was one of the main points being made by members of the opposition is really surprising and discouraging to me. And Delicia, you are just calling that out directly and addressing that, because you are a perfect example of someone who, yes, might have their hands full, and a lot of us do, but you are so beyond capable of becoming informed, becoming educated, finding the information that you need. I mean, we're always, information is just at our fingertips. So learning about candidates is what we should be doing anyways. That's not going to change. We should already be trying to get that information. So thank you, Delicia, for your comments. And we're still keeping an eye out for Cordelia. I see we have another phone caller on right now. Cordelia, is that you?
Hi, that's me. Yep, that's me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Cordelia. We have gone around and to the folks that we asked to speak in advance, we are just having you kind of give your perspective of why you're supporting ballot measure 2. From the first conversation we had, you were all in 100%, and that was really fun. And you gave me a lot of energy, as you always do. So really happy to have you on board as one of our steering committee members, as someone who has given a wonderful endorsement as well, and as one of our Alaska Natives for Better Elections coalition members. You are certainly going above and beyond to get involved with ballot measure 2, and I know that you are a tribal member of the village of Wainwright and are from the North Slope. So we've kind of gone a circle around, I think unintentionally, because we had our Southeast powerhouse, Liz Medicine Crow, and we had our Southwest powerhouse, Verner Wilson. I think we threw Stacy in there as well. We kind of went around, and then Northwest Arctic with Percy Ballot. And then now we are closing out our speakers with Cordelia Kelly from the North Slope. So I think we've made a good round around the state, and we'd love to hear from you, Cordelia, on why this matters to you and why you've become involved with the campaign.
Thanks for that wonderful introduction, Joy. It's really nice to hear the names of those that are on this call and to participate in this conversation. So Qinik again for the invitation. So I've just been following really the topics, one of the topics specifically about ranked choice voting for like the last few years, as it's kind of growing as a conversation in different states and different communities, kind of trickling throughout the United States. And I really think about the letter and op-ed that Barbara Blake wrote recently, and if you've not had a chance to read it, it's an incredible illustration of really a lot of the sentiments that I've also been feeling and carrying about, a system that really does look and is representative of, our communities as like Alaska Native peoples. I think about the system of binary and how, it's a system that our communities, which are so complex, are really been asked to kind of push ourselves into these two buckets. And I think that ranked choice voting is really a nod to a lot more of the complexities that you really see in our communities. There was somebody that I really admire who is Alaska Native, and she once said that like any system that forces us to choose is not of us. And, on this topic of really thinking culturally in a dominant Western way about thinking in binary, I just think more about, my elders and my community leaders, and how I've noticed that, my elders think a little bit more, not just like as either or, but thinking about things kind of like as a constellation, really, and how things are all connected. I just absolutely adore that this is, a bipartisan effort. Again, it reflects Alaska. I adore that in Alaska we have, more independents than there are Republicans and Democrats. And, I really do think that these are common sense reforms. Like, it's good to know, for example, who is, influencing with money our elections, And so for those reasons, I find that this is just, these are good policies for Alaska. I think it'll really reflect, what Alaska really looks like. And, personally being an undeclared voter, I just think about, like, if you take, and again, really the spirit, this nonpartisan spirit of this, coalition that's really being built around this ballot measure. I just think that, if you take all of the Democrats in Alaska and you put them together with all of the Republicans, you have our people. Like, it's our people first, it's our communities first, it's our villages first, and our cultures first. And really thinking about the issues and voting our values is something that a number of people say. And I think being able to have more of that ranked choice option is something that will help facilitate that to an even greater degree. So excited about this ballot measure. I think it'll just bring, it'll just be additive and really shine a light on how Alaska really is and can be in a position of national leadership when it comes to these types of conversations. So again, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate being part of this conversation. Cleanup Joy.
Thank you, Koyanakpak, to my good friend and just an amazing role model and leader across the state, Cordelia. So happy that you could join us today. And we've heard from several different people about their perspectives and why this matters to you. I think we've really brought it home in several different ways. And one thing that I always think about is that our people are so strong and so resilient. And we would not have survived for 10,000 years if we wasted time bickering about parties. Maybe fun parties, but not political parties. So, we I think get so caught around the axle with political parties, and I'm not saying that I'm opposed to them completely. I think there are times when it makes sense to be affiliated with the party, but I think to have that really be a major hang-up for us as a state and for our leaders, I think we often send really great people to Juneau. And I think part of my message on the campaign is that we're not saying that everyone that's been elected through this process is not a good leader. We've sent amazing leaders to Juneau, and we do have amazing leaders. And so, I'm don't have anything against any of our current leaders. It's more that when they get to Juneau and they do become a member of our legislature, do they have the incentives and the tools to work together? And is there a high standard of accountability to Alaskans and to voters? And that's where we have room for improvement. And so, looking at the strength in our communities, and really, which is represented in the strength of the people that have spoken today, which, all of you are such powerhouses and bring so much to the state in what you do in your life and in your work. So thankful to have you be a part of this conversation. We have about 15 minutes, and rather than throw any questions out, I would love to hear, I know Carly has been on patiently listening for over an hour, and my mom Dorothy has as well. I wanted to see if you had any questions or anything that you'd like to share with us before we wrap up today. I'll start with you, Carly.
Hi, everyone. It's honestly been just such an honor to hear everyone speak. I don't have the privilege of being from Alaska, and so as an outsider, I think it's been incredible to learn, especially from Alaska Natives. I am just joining to kind of help out the team for Alaskans for Better Elections, kind of helping with outreach. And so it's just been really inspiring and has made me really excited to continue this outreach and continue working for the team, hearing everyone talk about why they're supporting the measure. And so I'm honestly just kind of leaving this meeting with like some fire, because it's been really wonderful and exciting.
Awesome. Thank you, Carly. And what about you, Mom? Do you have anything to share? I think out of everyone that I know, you've really gone through the ringer of running for office, and kind of I'd hate to say the worst of the party process of running. And you've also worked in Juneau for 8 years. My first introduction to a statewide campaign was when I was about 10 years old, and my mom was working on a congressional campaign. So she would drag me to all of her meetings, and hence I think that's why I am who I am. But Mom, if you'd like to share anything with us just from your experiences in Juneau and also running for office as well. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you, sweetie. Appreciate this. Appreciate what you all are doing. I really do. I worked in Juneau, of course, worked on different campaigns, statewide and regional, and worked in Juneau for 8 sessions. So I saw firsthand the bipartisanship and how it doesn't work. And after I left, under lots of opposition or objections, I guess, I chose to run for a House seat, nonpartisan. I choose nonpartisan. NP, secretly Native people. So, but yeah, it was tough because you don't get any help. And like Joy said, people were really excited. Everywhere I went, I traveled from Fairbanks. It was that one district right after redistricting was House District 38. It went from Fairbanks all the way out to the coast, Scammon Bay, Hooper Bay, Cheevac, that area. But, I traveled to those villages and people were just so excited. I mean, in some areas, it was like I was coming home. I mean, especially the women, they were just so excited. But, I saw firsthand a lot of the districts, the poor places in Alaska just didn't get representation, and then their needs met. But then the next year, next 2 years, I guess, well, a couple of years after that, I ran for a party, and you got some help then, but still, it's tough. It really is tough. Not only for Alaska Native, but for a woman, and running against big labor, lots of money on the other side. It was tough. But again, I just, the best part about the campaigns is meeting people and talking to folks. And I've been saying for a long time, we need to start a new party, a nonpartisan party. And, people were saying, yeah, and I did actually check into it, but that's as far as I've gone. But this definitely would help in that area. So we can elect nonpartisan people and people that really represent Alaskans. So thank you. I'm getting ready to walk the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women's 5K. So I have my red on and I got to run here shortly.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mom, and publicly calling me sweetie and embarrassing me in front of my colleagues and all of Facebook world. But that's your job, I guess. And I love you and thank you and for what you're doing and all of your leadership. I think saying that this was like created from people out of state and out of state money, like looking at my mom and I, it's like 2 generations of people that have very independently come to the conclusion that status quo is not working and we need something better, from our own life experiences and from her experiences running for office as an Alaska Native woman, who we absolutely need to have more in Juneau representing us. And so really happy to fun to work with her as a steering committee member and as a member of the coalition as well. So thank you for joining us and for your comments tonight, Mom.
You're welcome, sweetie. Sorry.
Please mute her, Alex, before she can do it again.
You're missing the Facebook comments about how awesome your mom is.
Oh, okay. Well, she is awesome. I will give her that credit for sure. And see, this is supposed to be a fun hangout, so, you know, it's more casual. I would love to hear from, and I might say your name wrong, but Terry. I'm wondering if the P is silent or the T is silent, but thank you for joining us. And you've been on for a while and loving your comments in the chat box, and just wanted to see if you had any comments for us tonight, Terry.
I'm just really pleased. This is the first time I'm hearing about ballot 2. I try and keep abreast of stuff, but I'm less versed in the state. I just moved back here in 2018, and I've just been really trying to advocate for houseless folks because that's where my home politics are around. And also really supporting people who suffered with mental illness. And I'm really coming to this whole place that I'm intersecting with this moment in my own way. I feel like Western civilization is insane, and like I got locked up for really trying to learn to be a healthy human being by having a compassionate heart. You know, it's like that's where my path has been. And my engagement and my first thing that really helped open my heart was doing ceremony with the Indigenous people from the Dene down in the Navajo reservation. And it's like that broke my heart and opened it up. And next thing I know, I'm getting locked up by Western civilization. And so like this whole engagement about becoming a human being is a serious business for me. And if I try and have these conversations and understanding about stuff with the white organized community, I find I can't. I'm just still looking for the words. But I find in Indigenous governance and what I understand about sovereign governance, it's all about healing and building relationships and building diversity in the community and to building a healthy ecosystem for people and planet and the beings. So I'm excited about this ballot too. It's just moving in the direction of diversity of voices and having to respect the voices. You know, we come from a whole civilization here in Europe where the inside experience of people doesn't matter. We're very objectifying of people. That's the way the system is. And it's built that way. So historically, people with lots of power can govern and demand labor from other people who are less powerful. And that's the situation of what's happened with colonizing here. And it's like I'm speaking from that place here about how do we go and move from where we were to where we need to be as human beings so we can survive when climate change, can survive for the biodiversity loss that's been going on, and supporting the women who lead and heal and bring people together. So that's just where I'm coming from, and I'm really glad that this is happening. So thank you. It's like I'm just really honored to be able to listen, and like looking at conversations with my boss. I'm like calling people to tell them, are you voting? How are you voting? And there's a whole campaign here to help support people. I'll put this in the Facebook page to give people stamps, to get people on to be able to vote. And very much it's like, this is not a sovereign process. Very much that's true. But at the same time, if you have the ability to vote, it's like a whole important thing to vote right now. And it's like, and it's not harm reduction. It's just not the same thing at all. But, just having these conversations with my boss, who's Indigenous and working in an environmental organization, and having conversations about this ballot, because I haven't heard it from anybody else. And I was surprised. I hope she's on the call through Facebook. But, I was like, hey, let's watch this, so that's where I'm at. Thanks, you all.
Awesome.
I'm really honored to hear from everybody's intelligence here. It's just, yes.
you, Terry, and your comments in the chat box have been great. So thank you for joining us and for being a strong advocate in your life. And I think you kind of hit on a really good way to close our conversation today, is to have those conversations with our friends and our colleagues and our family members. There's some misinformation out there, and for us to be that spokesperson to say, you know, the opposition is saying that this is too complicated for us. Like, let's unpack that a little bit, and let's consider what's being said. And let's read between the lines, and what does that mean, and how are we going to allow that kind of you know, those sort of statements to be made without us showing up at the polls and saying, no, thank you, we disagree, and we're going to show you how much we are able to vote and to be informed by showing up and voting, and specifically voting for ballot measure 2. So talk to your friends, and we all have networks. Our Facebook is just a good example of that. You know, just try to share. And of course, I mean, we don't need to force people to view things the way that we do, but sharing information and letting people know where you stand on an issue is a great way to get the word out, and to just, you know, talk about these things, because this is happening, and it's happening now. And this is, like Scott has told me before, maybe our only chance this generation to do something like this. And Alaskans love to make history, so let's do it like we always do, and really lead the way for the rest of the nation. And I really think we can do it. The polls look amazing. So we are definitely doing a fabulous job with getting the word out, and Alaskans just are ready for change, I feel like. So, you know, there's so many people out there that are fed up with how the parties have been playing out in Juneau. So with that, we have just a few more minutes. I know if Percy or Cordelia have anything else they want to add, or Stacy, before we close the virtual hangout today.
This is Cordelia. I just want to say thanks for hosting the space. And so great to hear all of the voices and questions. Cleanup.
Thank you very much, Cordelia, and hope that you're doing well, and look forward to seeing you sometime in the near future, I hope, either virtually or in person. What about you, Percy? Do you have anything you'd like to share before we sign off? And you're on mute, just so you know. And on the phone, *6, I believe, is how you mute and unmute yourself. He might not have anything at the moment. Stacy, I'll hand it over to you, and we can come back to Percy and see if he has anything else to share.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you, everybody, for being here today, and, you know, sharing. A lot of this is really like true to our hearts about why we care and why we're involved, and, you know, why we would take time out of our busy lives to understand, even if we don't want to read the whole manual, right? Like, at least understand the power that this puts back in our hands, and the opportunity that this is to take a step in the right direction and structure our system a little bit better in a way that is going to, you know, lead to our ability to elect leaders that reflect our communities and are ready to go to Juneau and work on real problems, you know, and have the tools they need to work on solutions, and not get stuck in partisan gridlock or mud or whatever it is they're stuck in. I definitely appreciate everybody's comments on Facebook and sharing it. And if you're not on Facebook, of course, come check out our website. We've got videos you can watch. You can watch this soon. You can watch our individualist. Joy has a lovely video explaining why she's voting yes on 2. And of course, if you want to share one, I would love to hear it from everybody. And that's AlaskansForBetterElections.com. And there's also explainers. If you're like, this thing is tiny bit complicated, it's a 3-minute explanation. Like, everybody's 9-year-olds and everybody's 90-year-olds can totally understand. And But yeah, so we're here if you guys have questions. And I do hope that we can get together at least outside. I wanna see you all again soon.
Well, we want to see you too, Stacy. And on that note, I also wanted to add that we do have the Alaska Natives for Better Elections Facebook group. And so if you haven't already become a member of the group, please like that or ask to join the group. And we will definitely love to have as many people as possible. And one thing that the sun keeps shining on me. One thing that would be really helpful as well is for people to commit to just sharing some of our posts. We know everyone's busy and it's hard to take the time sometimes to make a video or to write an endorsement. We would love all of that. But if you can just hit the share button, which is just really fast and easy. I guess you don't press it with your finger unless it's on your phone, but still. But you can press share and just, if you believe in what the campaign is doing, then please just share the posts. And that will just help to inform people that what they're hearing about this being too complicated and whatever they're hearing, to just take a second look at it and to kind of maybe rethink some of the messaging that's out there, because it's fear tactics basically. And we want to have a real conversation about the real issues and not succumb to just kind of fear mongering that this is a bad thing or that this is too complicated for us to understand. So with that, I think we're a little over 4:30 and we appreciate everyone's time and involvement. We're under 30 days to the campaign. Let's sprint it out and appreciate everyone's involvement. And I'll hand it back to Alex to sign off today. And thank you, Facebook friends, for listening in today as well.
Thank you so much, Joy. I am just a little bit speechless and honored to have been part of this conversation. And this was just so fantastic. And thank you for moderating so beautifully. And thank you to all of our speakers who were able to join us and take a few minutes out of your busy lives and all of the organizing and work and families and everything else going on right now. I know everyone feels pulled in a million different directions, but this ballot measure, I think, just to underscore what everyone has said, is really a historic opportunity to make real change. And so it's just really exciting to be part of this movement. And if you're out there on Facebook or on Zoom and you want to get involved, please let us know. We have so many ideas of ways to plug you in. If you're a writer, we would love for you to write an op-ed. If you want to record an endorsement video, if you want to be involved in any of our digital events, if you would like a yard sign, we've got tons of opportunities. So please reach out, get involved, and stay involved, and most importantly, vote. And thank you so much to everyone watching, and we will see you all soon. Have a great day, everyone.
Hi, Joy.
Bye, Percy. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Troy.
you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yes,
Bye,
time
guys.
too.
I was going to say something about suicide, but we had 5 suicides in the last 2 years here in Buckland, and in our region was the high numbers. Why are we not having better mental health care programs or infrastructures in our region? It's a real big need here. And I also saw something in Anchorage about there's a need for a lot of mental health programs going in Anchorage. Why are we not, I don't hear people talk about suicide, and where we go from there. Hopefully we have somebody that's going to be addressing that, or we could reach out to partners to join what we're doing here, our cause for better elections, with some of their concerns, like suicide.
No, that's a very good point that you bring up, Percy, and an issue that's near and dear to all of our hearts. And just even more important, why we need leaders that understand the real issues that we're facing in our communities and Alaska Natives across the state are facing. I agree that we should continue dialogue on that. We'll have to reconvene this after the election and have another Zoom or something to continue supporting each other on these other issues as well. So let's stay in touch on that. And I think we're all getting connected on the campaign, and hopefully we stay in touch and we can just move on to the next issues after we accomplish our goal on November 3rd, hopefully.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Percy.
All right, thank you.